Hello and a happy new year to one and all. You are here listening to the inaugural episode of the Creative Outlet Podcast for the year 2021. Yes, today is January 18th, 2021 for the Creative Outlet Podcast episode number 7. My name is Brandon Pudwill and this is it. Year 1 of the good old COP is complete, and I think then some. I'm not exactly sure which date it was episode 1 was recorded. Of course, those of you in video viewing land, or hopefully audio listening land, let's put a pin in that, can go back and actually listen to what date the first episode was recorded, because I say it in every single episode. So, either way, this is a whole year of episodes, and as always with the introduction here to these podcasts, I think it's good to talk about some of the things, like reflect on some of the things, and of course, in this case, I want to reflect on the whole year just for the podcast as far. So let's start with some of the things that I planned on going back to January of 2020. My goal originally was to make 10 episodes. There were 6. So clearly that means I did not meet that goal. I got a little bit more than halfway, but I didn't quite get as far as I wanted to. And, some of that has to do with things that happened in my personal life. Some of that has to do with just school in general, trying to try new things. As far as episode 5 is a clear example. Is just I wanted to have a guest, and fortunately we did get to see the Creative Outlet bonus birthed from that. By the way, episode 1 is officially available to view, and as I am speaking right now, episode 2 of the Creative Outlet bonus, because it's 2 parts to the same first draft of episode 5. That's uploaded. It just needs to have all the stuff written out. Originally, I was thinking of putting it onto some audio platforms as well, but I'm starting to think that might not be such a good idea, just because I don't want that to mess with the order of regular numbered Creative Outlet podcast episodes. But that's getting a little bit tangential from what I really need to be focusing on. And as far as reflections, thinking back on, say, episode 6, God, that was 4 months ago now, which is insane to me, because it feels like I just recorded it. I feel like, because I have to think about the topics there too. As far as the directs, we've seen more little presentations come out. There's more news on the Mario side of things that I think is pretty interesting. A bunch of the stuff came out. Heck, you can probably barely see one of them in the background there, which is the Super Mario Brothers Game & Watch, which is pretty darn cool if I do say so myself. Really, the only update I have on it that I find important to talk about, just as far as myself, is with Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. Now, Bowser's Fury itself still looks really, really interesting, and I'm glad that we know more information about it. But if you'll remember in episode 6, I said, I might just pick it up because of the online play, and now I'm going to have to retract that purely because... So, 3D World plus Bowser's Fury has the exact opposite problem that people had with Super Mario Maker 2, which is that in Super Mario Maker 2, for its online play, you could only join with random other players, and then in Super Mario 3D World, you can only join with friends. So, I don't have a ton of friends that I would know that would be wanting to play Super Mario Maker 2 at the same time, so that was something I really didn't care about, but I totally understand why people were upset about it, because it's pretty obvious that you should have friend play in any online game, duh. But in Super Mario 3D World, now you can only play with friends. So the whole reason that I would be willing to pick up for the second time is completely out of the window for me, because I don't think I really know anyone who would want to play Super Mario 3D World with me, let alone 3 other people that I can connect with at the same time who would actively want to do it. Now, maybe that would change. It's certainly possible, but I don't really foresee that happening. Uh, so that's about the only real update I have on that, especially because the other 2 topics were pretty not like updatable. Well, and I know the clubhouse topic. We're gonna talk about a little bit of that in here too. As far as other reflections on year one, the only thing I really want to talk about left with that is what my goal is for this second year. Then, and again, I want to try to do 10 episodes. Ideally, if I don't meet that, I would say my goal is, because I want to get it to be like kind of a round-ish number. So right now we're on 7. Ideal if we can get to at least 15, ideally 17. If I get to 15 total episodes by the end of year 2, that would be ideal. And I would say the main time that this is going to come down to is summer, because I should have open time in the summer again, hopefully, to work on this. As far as other intro-y topics, we're going to talk about some production updates. Now, I have things here in a very specific order, but I think I'm going to just flip what I have because it's really 2 pieces. There's really 2 pieces. First, I want to talk about an equipment update, which I'm sure to everyone sounds super interesting, but trust me, it is important. And then I want to talk about something else that I kind of alluded to not too before. So as far as equipment changes, most everything is the same computer. I've got the same good old Blue Yeti sitting in front of me. I'm still using the VSDC video editor, but we have, and you can't really see it, but I have now a cable that goes into the mic port on the camera that goes back around here into the good old Yeti, which means that we have solved a major editing problem. So I'm sure if you've watched the videos, sometimes, and I know this is going to be frustrating for some people now that they're going to be aware of this, because I know this would happen to me too, the audio and the visual of me speaking probably doesn't line up absolutely perfectly. And that's because in VSDC, one of the premium features, this is one of the paid features, and I'm not ready to pay for an editor, and if I were ready to pay for an editor, I would A, want a better computer, and B, want a better editor. Not that it's bad editing software, but I'm just used to using something like Premiere, but that's a little bit of a digression. The problem is, viewing your audio waveform is a premium feature. So when I was with some of the earlier episodes, back when I was still in the dormitory, and I could just waltz my happy self over to the library and go rent a computer that has Premiere on it, I could just line up the audio from Audacity with the video from the camera, and that'll be fine. But I can't do that because I just can't, I'm not even allowed to see it. So my solution to that was this cable. It goes into the microphone, it goes into the mic port on the camera, so now I won't even need to bother importing the audio from Audacity, which should make editing just even that littlest bit faster. Speaking of making editing faster, that gets to the other important equipment update, which is, and you might already be able to tell this, if only because I've changed the angle again, is I am using a brand new camera. So before I was using, well, really I was borrowing, if you remember from the Creative Outlet bonus, that was my guest Lex Tooney. That's her Canon EOS T6i. She really hasn't been using it too much. She's thinking of using it soon for her own sort of projects. So obviously she needs it back, and it was fine because I really wanted my own camera that does some different stuff. Anyway, so I have upgraded to the Canon Vixia HFR 800, which, I mean, should be a similar video quality camera, but it's a camcorder, so that comes with its own bonuses to it, with really the biggest one being it really solves a major problem that the Rebel EOS had, which was you could only record in 30-minute increments, whereas now with this, I can just record until the battery dies. And so, like, when I started this, for example, it said I had like 160 minutes, so just shy of 3 hours, and the longest episode of this, I think, has been barely over 2, so we should be plenty fine to get through this, depending on how long it takes. And that should make editing easier, because that just means I have to string all the clips together, and then, other than putting the intro and the outro audio and any B-roll for the video portion, that's done. But, maybe you don't care about the video, which is sad, because I like to think I don't have a face that's made for radio, but maybe I'm wrong. But if you do prefer audio, I would like to let everybody know that the audio version is now available, primarily through the service Anchor.fm. So this is a service that I learned about from those guys over the good old Completely Unnecessary podcast. You can also find the CU podcast on Anchor. Essentially what this means is you can now find the audio-only version of the show at Anchor, so that's Anchor, like an anchor in the sea, ANCHOR .fm, like FM radio, / the COP, so that's Anchor.fm / THECOP. One of the other cool things about Anchor, or at least a couple of the things, is one, it's free. So I don't need to spend any money on it, which is great because I need to spend money on tuition. And depending on if, the world stops imploding, housing. And also, actually, before I get too far in this, I want to also clarify this is not a paid ad in any way, shape, or form. These are just facts about it that I want everybody to know, because they're things that I know about it and I think are useful. And probably the big one, but the one that's also probably going to get used the least, is any listeners can send in audio messages to me on there. Now, currently I have a very, very, very small audience, potentially one that you would say is non-existent, but that's part of this being the creative outlet, in that it's like, if I get an audience, that's great. If I don't, it's fine, I'm doing this for myself anyway. But to the extent that there is anybody that is so interested, they can send in audio messages, be they questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, etc., recipes, maybe. Just, try to keep them relatively short, because they're really for me to answer or comment on. As far as any other benefits with Anchor, again, not a paid ad, but the big thing about it is that it solves something that's been a problem for me, just because I don't really understand how to do this. But it has brought the Creative Outlet podcast to other prominent audio platforms. So I tried navigating getting the COP on certain platforms, but I'm dumb. I can't figure out what to do with my RSS feed. But thanks to Anchor, you can now also listen to the Creative Outlet podcast on Spotify, as well as Google Podcasts, for those of you who have an Android device. You can find it on Breaker, Radio Public, as well as Pocket Casts. Now, those last three I haven't heard of, but I'm sure there are people using it. I haven't heard of it. And there are 3 additional platforms that Anchor has yet to get me on, so I might have to figure out how to do that legwork still, because they were pretty quick with getting me on those first few that I mentioned. And those platforms are CastBox, Overcast, and really the major one that I'm sure everybody noticed I didn't mention, which is Apple Podcasts. So sorry, iOS and Mac users, if you use Apple Podcasts and want to keep listening to me, but it seems like you'll have to use, ideally, Anchor.fm /THECOP. I will repeat it again, and I'm sure there will be text at some point, at least one of these times when I spoke the link aloud just now. But I hopefully they'll get me on there. If they don't, I guess it'll just have to be what it is. So, other than that should be the end of production updates. Just before we go into the topic rundown, though, there's one other thing I briefly want to talk about, which is you may be noticing that the style for my speaking so far is a little bit different. It's not too terribly different, but I've had notes in the past that have been like at least 20 some odd pages. This episode's is 6, and there's a reason for that. I am trying to do a little bit more improvisationally type of speaking for this, if only because I think that is another way that hopefully I can get more episodes created. I certainly want them to be the same quality, but also, I realize that quantity is lacking when you can only make 6 in the span of 365 days. So we're just going to try out this experiment here. If the episode only ends up being like an hour or less, or if it ends up being even longer, we'll just have to see what happens. So other than that, let's talk about the topic. So today we're going to be starting off with a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Roundup, going back to things that we missed since about September. Actually, I think it might be October, but it may as well be September. I want to talk about the Creative Outlet Podcast 2020 Game of the Year nominees, as well as the winner. I actually want to talk about a bit about the holiday of New Year's, especially since we started a new year. And finally, I want to give an even bigger, worldly 2020 wrap-up. So, without further ado, let us get right into the topics today.